what do you think was the most high value skill that you had that made you confident in starting your business?
Oh, what a great question that is. I would say maybe a combination of two things. Number one, when things don't go according to plan, great managers always have the same reaction every time.
Do you have to master your Japanese first before becoming an entrepreneur?
The kids are losing it. They're like, look out, it's a bee, look out, it's a bee. Like they're absolutely jumping out of their chairs, like screaming at this guy in English.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Passion Project Japan. I'm Theo.
And I'm Gia.
And today our special guest is Sean.
Hi.
You want to give a little introduction about yourself, Sean?
Sure, yeah. My name's Sean. I'm from the US. I've lived here in Nagoya for over 20 years. Okay. And for most of that time, I started teaching, and then I became a school manager, and then I started my own business. So that's it's kind of what I do. I'm fairly active in the community as well. I participate in the walkathon, which is it's a community event that they have every year. Okay. So yeah, and then that's it.
Thank you so much for coming.
That's kind of me.
I know it's a bit late. Today was one of our latest recordings, I think.
Yeah, 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's interesting. Actually, Sean, I'm also an English teacher.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
I do that for Baito, and the main reason why I work for teaching English is just for the money.
Okay. Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, we know.
Right?
No. Yeah, I mean, obviously I think everyone gets their start in English teaching. They happen to be in Japan or wherever they are, and they come and they teach and they can make some money. I think the people who stick with teaching, yeah, they're teachers. They like teaching. And I in particular I like working with young learners because you can really see their progress. Like they change so fast, and you tell them to do something and they'll pout, but they'll do it. If you know how to talk to them, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So what was your start in Japan actually? So how do you come here, and what was your first job like? And
okay. Wow, my first job. Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on my first job in Japan. But so I came to Japan pre-internet. So I saw the job advertisement in a newspaper, and I answered it. And I actually applied at that time. I applied to both a job in Korea and a job in Japan. And the one in Korea didn't accept me, right?
Okay.
And so I wound up taking the one in Japan, and it was here in Nagoya. And and then my first job, it was kind of right at the end of the bubble era. It was a really, I guess they call them cowboy English schools. And there were just people who wanted to make as much money as possible. Yeah. The school owners were Japanese, right? And they didn't treat the staff very well. We all had to make lunch together.
Make lunch together?
We had to make lunch together. It was weird, man. And then you're new to Japan, right? And you're like, I guess this is how they do it in Japan. They all make lunch together. And of course, every Japanese person I told is like, "Nani?" It's like you have to do what? It's like that's a weird place. So anyway, that was kind of my first job.
But that's crazy though, because 20 years ago, imagine. You didn't really have internet at that time even, right?
No, it was pre-internet. I mean, they were just coming out with, Pokebell was the thing. It was a pager.
Right.
Yeah. They had pagers. If you wanted to call somebody, I wanted to date some girl, I had to call her house and talk to her dad. It was like, it sucked, man.
Old school stuff.
Yeah, it was like old school. No, so this is back in like 97. So yeah, maybe a little bit, maybe 25 years ago, but yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe
things different back then.
Things are different. Things are different back then.
Yes.
But so how did you get interested in Japan? Because I guess you applied to these jobs from the States.
Correct. Yeah.
How do you get interested in Korea or Japan?
Yeah, that is a great question. When I was undergrad, I did a semester of foreign studies in India. Uh-huh. So I always had kind of like an Asia focus. Also, I'm from California. Yeah. And there's lots. I mean, there's like Little Saigon is right. Of course, there's Chinatowns. everywhere you go, and there's like Little Japan. I can remember watching some sumo tournaments on one of the local channels.
Oh wow! Okay.
Like even way back in the day, there was this Japan channel, and I watched Kaze no Tani no Nausicaa, like the Ghibli movie.
Wind Rider.
The Wind Rider one, right?
The Wind
and I watched and you're like, oh my god, what did I just watch? So yeah, so I think that's kind of what maybe sparked like an interest in Japan in particular. So just like growing up in California, and like there were these old books too, like Shogun by James Clavell.
Okay.
It was a big thing like back in the 80s. Like so there was like, and I did karate when I was a kid too.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. So you had all these little experiences.
Yeah, right. So I
that
didn't
kind of-
realize it was pointing
Connection with
me,
Vietnam,
you know,
sorry,
in
Japan.
the direction. Yeah.
Hey there. If you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, please do so.
How long do you do just English teaching job, and when do you decide to become? Oh, I need to take a big step in my career, become a manager in the school.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think I worked probably about 2 or 3 years, maybe as an English teacher. I did go back to the States for one bit as well. Like I came over for a year, I went back to the States for a year, and then I came over for a year again. So like maybe my total time is like just straight up English teaching was probably about 3 years. And then after 3 years, I was with a company called Britannica Japan. Do you know what Britannica is famous for?
What is Britannica famous? Encyclopedia.
You guys don't? Yeah, thank you. There you go.
Yeah. Encyclopedia.
Yeah, encyclopedia. Yes, it's
Yeah.
the encyclopedia
Oh,
company.
so it's the same company.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And there was a Japan branch. So they had, Britannica HQ was in Chicago, but there was a Japan company. There was a chain of English schools. So I started there, and an opening came up for a manager position, and I was young, and I was married I got married, and so I was like, okay, well, I should probably step up and go ahead and be a manager, and that's kind of where I got my start managing. Yeah.
For the managers, just out of curiosity, are they mostly English teachers who move to managerial positions, or are they usually Japanese people who work for Britannica that get
That's a great. I think
shifted
Britannica's model, and this is one of the reasons that they had to close, probably, was that they, we didn't go bankrupt,
Yeah.
but they did close. We were not
Withdrew.
financially profitable, because the whole .com thing, right? No, I mean their parent company's business model was like selling information in books.
Yeah.
Right. So that turned out to not be a great business model, but so back to the manager. No, they whoever was doing it was at least like functionally bilingual in both languages. Yeah.
So when did
Yeah.
you become bilingual? Because by then you lived in Japan for quite a while.
I lived,
right?
yeah, but I didn't and I did study a little bit. I got the Mina no Nihongo, and, of course.
It existed. back then? Wow.
Mina no Nihongo, right? I did that.
Genki,
Yeah. So I studied a little bit by myself, but yeah, I didn't have time to fully dive in. And coincidentally, after I got laid off from the Britannica job,
Oh, no.
and that's when I decided to start my own school. I had a little bit of time, a gap there where I enrolled in a full-time like Japanese language course.
Okay.
And at that point, my Japanese got decent. So
Ooh.
yeah.
Do you have to master your Japanese first before becoming an entrepreneur, or you just start the school first?
That is a great idea. I think it really depends on what idea you're trying to execute on. I think if it's a more technical thing where maybe programming is more of a valuable skill set, I'd say you don't have to be fully fluent in Japanese. Yeah, that's great. If possible, get the language skills first, right? But if you have an idea that's timely and you need to execute on it, I would say that might take precedence. But yeah, so yeah, great question. Like ideally, you would have the Japanese language skills in there. So yeah, so study your Japanese.
What do you think was the most high value skill that you had that made you confident in starting your business?
Oh, what a great question that is. Oh,
Sorry,
my
it's
goodness.
maybe a bit loaded.
No, that's great. Yeah, and we are like, tell me why you're so great. I would say maybe a combination of two things. Number one, I think at that point I was extremely optimistic right? In believing in these bright futures and things like that. And the number two is I'm very resilient and stubborn, and I have a very high threshold of pain. So, so those two things combined have kind of got me through it. Like, oh, it's gonna get better. You know, we just, oh man, or, you know, if, you know, oh, it didn't work out. Okay, now we have to make it better. So yeah, so just kind of that, like always trying to figure out like what. The interesting thing, the best managers, when something goes wrong at the company, and this is from a Gallup study. It's a book called, oh geez, I forgot the name of the book. I'll remember it. But it was a book on First Break All the Rules by Buckingham and somebody else. And so one of the things that great managers do is when things don't go according to plan, great managers always have the same reaction every time, right? Okay. And the first question, like, so for example, you know, Rafi comes in late, you know, right? And I'm the manager, I'm angry, right? Rafi, you know, you're late. So the best managers, the very first thing they would say to Rafi is they'd be like, why? Because they want to understand why there's underperformance. You know, why are you not meeting my expectations? You can't just go off on somebody, right? And it's great, and like having that mindset, it allows you to be a very effective leader, because more than half the time, I'd say about 65% of the time, when there is underperformance like that, there's always some reason. Not always. So I just said 65, but like sometimes they're just forgetting, well, you know, what you trained them to do or something like that, right? Yeah. But a lot of times there's some other circumstances that you're not aware of as the manager, and then once that comes into the view, you're like, okay, all right, let's fix that, right? And then a lot of times, like, it changes, right? And of course, people appreciate it that you don't like shoot first, you know, and ask questions later. So
you learn to understand them and see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Before you make a reactionary.
It does. Now that doesn't mean they're always off the hook, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, you know, why did that happen? It's like, oh, you just didn't you forgot the thing, you know, we asked you to do. So yeah, sometimes it's that, but yeah. Usually it isn't, though. Usually there is some like other reason.
You mentioned optimism and resilience.
Yes.
But let's say 20 years ago, no internet. Just got laid off.
Yeah.
How do you get all these things, and what was your business model like?
Yeah. So I mean, the business model was essentially a continuation of what we were already doing. So I think that's why I had some confidence in it, right? I think I naively thought that, oh, I'm a very good teacher. I can manage teachers. That means I can own my own business, right? And I think I wasn't quite aware of how much effort goes into the other parts of running a successful business. You know, sales and marketing and admin, and you know, doing your taxes and everything like that, and you know, compliance and all that stuff. Sorry, did I answer the question? Sorry.
Just maybe like some context. I'm not sure if we fully explained this, but what exactly is your business and what do you do? Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So our business, we are a private English language corporation, and we offer classes in two sectors of that market. It's kind of the Eikaiwa, or like maybe once a week, young learners, and anywhere from ages maybe 2 up until high school. And typically those students will come in about once a week, or maybe twice a week, and they'll come and learn English, and they tend to stay with you for a long time. And then we're also operating an international preschool and kindergarten program, which is ages 2 through 6. And it's full on. Like the kids are there from 9 until about 2:30, and then if they do the extension on it, because some of the working parents drop their kids off at 8 and they pick them up at 5:45, and you know, it's the whole thing. And like the staff, you're with them all day. You're eating lunch with them. You know, the kids that need potty training, they're being potty trained by the by the staff and things like that. So yeah, so those are anyway. It's in English Language Services Company, and those are kind of maybe our two main sectors, or our two main market segments that we're in. Yep. Pretty standard stuff, I think.
Do you have any partners at that time, or you just started by yourself?
I did start with a partner. And all of the all of the cliches about how horrible it is to start a business with a partner, they are true. So it's just if you're out there and if you're thinking of starting a business with a partner, you know, just Yeah, just be careful. I would say, plan the breakup as you're planning the business, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if it, or even have benchmarks. Hey, after 1 year, if we don't hit this benchmark, what's going to happen,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so I did start with a partner. Yes.
So always sign the prenups, basically.
Yeah, it was pretty much. No. So yeah, I was working with a partner. It wasn't quite working out. I'm sure he has his. I'm still good friends with him. Like,
Okay,
he's
awesome.
great. But no, I was doing like a lot more work, but we were splitting the money kind of 50-50. So I was like, hey, yeah. And then he was like, I'm not doing any more work. So yeah. So at that point I was like, okay, well, we can do three things, right?
Yep.
We can, you can sell me your half of the business for X amount,
Okay.
or I can sell you my half of the business for X amount. It was the same amount of money.
Yeah.
So I gave
50-50,
I
yeah.
gave him the chance to buy me out for the same price I was willing to buy him out, or we can both walk away and get nothing. Right. So that was kind of it. And so at that point, my partner, my former partner, he took the buyout. So yeah. And then that's how we kind of navigated that. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yes.
It's good that you guys are still friends though.
He's a good guy. It's just, I think, we were talking a little bit before the podcast, how I think a lot of English teachers just want to be English teachers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily want to be entrepreneurs, right? They want to show up, teach, get their money, go home and live their lives and be happy, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was my former partner wasn't able to make that transition where, it's more than just, punching the card and teaching your classes and, peace out kind of thing. So, yeah.
And why were you able to make that transition?
I don't know. No, I don't know. No, let's see. No, I'm always like, I'm always results oriented, right? So, like I said, the threshold to pain thing, right? It's like if I see what I want or like the result that I want, I don't mind putting in the extra effort. As I was an athlete, a college athlete, like high school and college athlete. I did wrestling. So it's not an easy sport, right? I mean, you have really long practices and grueling, and in the off season you're still doing stuff, and then sometimes you can't eat, and think like because if you're cutting weight or things like that. So, but you endure all that because you want to win, right? You want to be I guess I kind of had that maybe slightly competitive. Spirit, but more competing against myself rather than like, oh, I want to beat you. It's like, no, I want to be the best version of me I can be, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I guess it's very like intrinsic, kind of competitiveness.
Within
Just
yourself.
you want to take the next step in your career because you went from English teacher to manager, and now naturally the next step is your own boss, your own own your own company.
Own your own company, and then it's nice too. I mean, I'm complaining a little bit, but I think one of the nice things about being your own, like owning your own company, it's great if there's a problem, you can fix it, right? You can fix it, and you can fix it right away, and you don't really need to. I mean, I do ask for for input from other team members on it if I ever do change some policy. But it's great. Like, oh, hey, that's a problem. All right. You have a meeting, and then, you're like, okay, what's the problem here? All right, we're not going to do it that way. Now we're going to do it this way, right? And like stuff gets better, right? Yeah. So that's one thing I do really enjoy about having being the owner of a small business is if something's really annoying, you can go fix it, right? Go fix it.
Yeah, I'm very curious about the process of starting a business in Japan, like 0 to 1. So. I don't know if this is like too broad a question, but how did you, start the business in terms of like filing? I guess visa you were already on.
I already had my visa was taken care of. I already had like Eijuken at the time, so that was okay. And actually, that's gotten a lot. The visa side of that equation has gotten a lot easier recently because I think the Japan government has realized that they need foreign entrepreneurs.
Yeah. The digital nomad visa recently.
Yeah. But no, so in terms of starting, I think a lot of people, you can start a thing called a Kojin Gaisha, which is basically a sole proprietor.
Yeah, Kojin Jigyo.
Kojin Jigyo. Yeah, they might. I think they changed the name a little. I'm doing the old one, the Kojin Jigyo. Yeah. They used to call it Kojin Gaisha, but anyway.
Sounds cooler though.
Yeah, right. I think it sounds a little better. Sounds a little better, right? But yeah, I know a lot of times the way that you do that is just at the end of your tax year, you just say, "Oh, I was a Kojin Gaisha," and you have to file that. Of course, you need all your receipts and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do all your documentation and all that. But yeah, there's nothing really that we needed to file. Like we didn't need to get permission to be an English school.
Okay.
And that's for the Eikaiwa side.
Mm-hmm.
For our international preschool and kindergarten, there are requirements if you wanted to be the Muninka, or no, it's a Ninka Gai Hoikuen or a Ninka Hoikuen, or just it's weird. They have these three levels, right?
Okay.
There's like the official Hoikuen, right, the daycare center. There's this like unofficial Hoikuen. It's like it's the unofficial official one, right?
Okay.
And that's what we are. So it's called Ninka Gai. And then there's just one you don't have any sort of license or anything. And so obviously whatever business you're starting, you should look into that space and just make sure what sort of requirements there are. I know, for example, if you want to open a restaurant or something, there's an office called Hokenjo, which is basically the city health department. I know there's different certifications you need to get on the health side of it, liquor license as well.
Yeah, serve alcohol.
Yeah. So I mean, there's always stuff like that. It depends what kind of business that you are opening. But I think so. If you're going to open a business, consider what is your corporate structure. You don't have to start incorporated. Like you could just start as a sole proprietor and see how it goes for a year before moving on. And then if maybe you have some benchmarks or milestones and you're hitting those, that's fine. Then you can incorporate later. But it's a lot easier if you don't have to do that. If you're doing B2B stuff, it's a lot harder though.
Okay. Yeah.
True.
Right. Because they'll look at your business card and be like, "Who are you?" Oh, you're like, you're Theo. All right. Great. No, like if it says Kabushiki Gaisha, whatever, they understand that you've gone through the work.
Yeah.
To have capital and and all that stuff. Yeah.
5 million yen or something, I guess, to start up the capital.
I haven't researched. Yeah. I know that there are some ways around that, like the capital requirement, and I know you can defer payment on some of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I haven't looked into it recently. I haven't needed to do it recently. So,
guys, we are upping up our short form content game this year. So if you don't want to miss that out, please follow us at Passion Project JP on Instagram and TikTok. Exclusive content just for you guys. I have a question, like follow-up question on that, which is, it sounds like there's a lot of administrative things to settle before you start your business. But how were you so confident that you could get like customers and make sure that this turns profitable from the very start?
That's a great question. I think as we were as my prior company was closing, we did have some people approaching us like privately. And they said, "Oh, hey, can you continue teaching us English?" So I think we were fairly confident that we could get at least some of the students, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that also gave us some confidence to go ahead and just try it, right? So and I think if there anybody's thinking of starting a company or something, I mean you can. I would probably do it one of two ways. I might work for a company that's operating in the same space. Mm-hmm. And obviously you don't want to steal customers because that's not cool. Like man. That like karma will come get you on that one. But no, like just work for somebody that's also operating in the same space, see how it goes, make sure you do the right thing and move far enough away if you want to go open your own shop. Mm-hmm. There's that way, or another way is to just start small. Yeah. So for example, like if somebody was wanting to start their own English school, print up some flyers and go rent out a room at a community center and just see if you have what it takes, the skills to get because it's hard. It's hard to get, enough people together to make that a profitable thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Can imagine.
Yeah.
How many students did you have in the first place and how many do you have now?
That's a great question. No, I don't usually answer to like direct student numbers. Yeah, I think when we first started, I think we started with about like 80 students or something like that.
80s.
Like maybe 70 or 80 students.
Wow, when you started.
Yeah.
That's quite a substantial amount of.
It was a nice push when we first started. And now we're obviously over that number right now. And then just in terms of numbers too, like. one student in our international preschool kindergarten program, from a revenue basis, we can make whatever Hachiman a month from them or something like that in terms of sales, right? Or like revenue. Whereas one student, so like, how many students do you have? It depends. Is it the Hachiman person or, so I know some people, they're like, oh, I have 300 students, but they count like, they have contracts that like have off-site lessons and stuff like that. They're like, oh, we have so many students. Like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's like, how much money are you making? That's like that's really the question.
The LTV of a student. Yeah. The lifetime value.
Sure. Or like, or no, the average, or like the average sales, like per student, like the revenue per student, and then times the lifetime value of it. Yes.
I'm curious. How do you acquire new customers now? Is it purely through phone?
Great. Great question. In terms of our marketing, we do some of we have a website. We have a Facebook page that I should probably pay more attention to. A lot of, I know our school, it tends to be quality based. So a lot of times we get referrals, just like word of mouth referrals. And then in terms of how they're inquiring, I think maybe you asked, I think there are telephone calls. We also have a homepage as well where they can, so there's kind of two channels that they can use. Occasionally you still get walk-in, like we got a walk-in customer the other day. Like that hasn't happened especially since COVID, right? We had a walk-in customer. I'm like, who are you? And they're like, oh, we're thinking of English lessons. They're like, oh, look, it's a walk-in customer. Natsukashi.
Wow, okay.
It used to happen a lot more. We used to get walk-ins a lot.
That's interesting. I didn't know that changed post-COVID.
Yeah. Well, obviously during COVID, like nothing.
Yeah. How was that like in COVID?
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah. It's hell. Yeah.
Online classes?
No, if you were like, hey, tomorrow, it's going to be another COVID and you're going to have to do exactly what you did through COVID, I'd be like, okay, well, peace out. It's like, school for sale, man. But no, COVID was very difficult just because, it was at the beginning, it was scary, because nobody knew what it was. And then there were all these new regulations that were coming out. And, and then the government didn't want us to close.
Ooh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Well, we're a registered daycare center, right?
Okay.
So, in order for people to go to work, they need to put their kids somewhere.
I see. Yeah.
Right. And if they don't go to my daycare center, they have to go to another. Like if we close because somebody has COVID, then now everybody from my daycare center needs to go to the other daycare centers, right? So we were like never told to close, and we were actually able to navigate about 2 years without having a case in the school.
Wow.
I think towards the Omicron era, or like about 2.5 years in, we got a couple cases. Like it started popping up, but we were good. We had a good stretch where we didn't have any cases in the school. We never closed.
Wow.
We never closed. Like not once. We did have people who, like, our numbers went way down. Like half the people weren't coming in, but the other half, they were like, they wanted to come. Because again, they needed to work and they were using us as their daycare center. So, yeah.
Well, that's impressive because you mentioned earlier that maybe being your own boss is really like easy in the sense that you can, just deciding things very fast. But it also comes in with a lot of responsibilities, right?
A lot of pressure.
Yes.
Lots of pressure.
Lots of pressure.
Yeah, lots of responsibility, lots of pressure. Yes. Absolutely, yeah. That's why that's the gray. You can see I've mentioned. See this is like gray. The lines up here. See, yeah. So,
what do you think is the hardest part then of running a business?
Yeah, great question. When you're starting, I mean, just making sure you have product market fit, making sure that whatever you are offering, it's what your customers want, or it's that it's the right match. That's kind of a good like generic answer. In terms of running your business, I mean, there's so many things I could say, but just
the biggest headache, the one that you think about, you're like
the biggest, like for me, right? My okay, that's easy to answer. I can do that one. It's all the paperwork, right? It's all the paperwork, and it's just. And it seems like it's getting more and more.
It's endless,
and then of course I need to ask Japanese people to help me with it, right? Because I can't do a lot of the paperwork, right? because most of it's in Japanese. And of course, like if you hire people, like recruiting and training is always really difficult. Just because if you get the wrong person in, then it's not fun. It is very, very unpleasant. It's just like it is not a fun thing if you get the wrong person on your boat, right, or on your train or whatever analogy you want to use. It's very difficult and it's very painful.
I listen to a lot of business podcasts, and I think that a lot of the startup founders, they say that the most difficult thing is always hiring, getting the right staff, getting the that A game player that will help you to elevate the business.
Sure.
So for yourself, what kind of traits or qualities do you look for when you're hiring?
That's a great question. And actually, my hiring, like I've got a pretty good hiring system, right, where I can screen for like what I'm looking for. I mean, it's just like it's common sense stuff. Like just come in, have some reasonable sort of skill in what we're trying to ask you to do, and be open to constructive criticism, basically. I use the analogy whenever anybody's onboarding at our school. I said, okay, like they're English teacher. Okay, you're an English teacher. Imagine we're a restaurant, okay? And you're a cook, right? You're a cook, I'm a cook, you're a cook. Everybody's a cook. We all make soup, right? I know what the flavor of soup that my customers like, right? And you make great soup, but it's a little too spicy, or it's like you put in too much salt or whatever. You need more potatoes or something, right? Like I'm gonna ask you to change and modify like how you're operating. Like I literally have this conversation with everybody who works, and everybody says, yeah, no problem, I can do that. And about half the time, no, like, you start criticizing somebody, and I think especially the people who have not trained as teachers, they take the criticism as a personal attack rather than in the spirit that it's given. It's like, hey, your teaching needs to get better is what, that's why I'm saying that, right? I'm not saying because I don't like you or I want to make you feel bad. It's just like, here's the standard, here's where you are, there's a gap. Can we move? So, yeah.
And this purely through I guess you learned this through your own experience as well, because you didn't go to like formal teaching school?
Oh, I mean, I attended, I did master's level work in linguistics and stuff like that. But I did not, correct, but I never earned a teaching license though.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So this teaching pedagogy is your own, like kind of.
Yeah. I think other people use it too. It's just, I think if you want to talk teaching pedagogy, what do we call it? It's constructivist pedagogy. If you want to, if you want to go, it's constructive.
Technical.
So basically, a constructive, the opposite of a constructivist would be a behavioralist. A behavioralist, language teacher, they think, repeat after me. This is a pen.
This is a pen.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, now great. You're learning it now. Right. They think because they're making the sound that they're learning it. Right. Whereas constructivists, like what we do, is we might say, hey, what's that? Like pen. What's that? Eraser. What's that? Crayon. And I might say, hey, is this a pen? And they'd be like, no. Oh, what is it? Like, I want them to tell me what it is.
Okay.
Right.
So instead of just like the call and response kind of.
Yeah.
That's interesting. When we learn Japanese, that is the way, behavioral is the way that we are taught in Japanese class.
Yeah. And even in EFL, to be honest, a lot of schools still teach like that. They think that if they're mirroring the teacher, like if they're just repeating the teacher, that they're somehow learning it.
Yeah.
I do that for pronunciation. Because I think that's valid for pronunciation. Like, okay, one more time, ready? Very good, and very good. It's like, no, very good, right?
Yeah.
Very, like, right? So you really need to kind of like that. I think that's fine for getting them to repeat after you, right? But that's more of like a technical thing, and it's not like the language part of it,
I agree though. Maybe that's why I really never remember those Japanese songs that Tokido Sensei teach me. Like I don't like it at all because I feel like it's a very hard, difficult way to learn a language. I just learn it as I remember it. Instead of you have to remember the song. For me, that's very difficult.
Okay.
And how do you teach your students then?
in my class, I
Yeah.
also really appreciate them if they can talk to me. I
Sure,
Yeah.
it's communicative.
yeah, it's
Right, yeah.
communicative.
You're speaking to them as a person. So that means you're using, English isn't a subject, it's a tool for communication with another human.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I think that's really kind of the framework that we use as well. It's like we try and remain very communicative
Yeah.
with the kids, and we try to set, and then my good friend Scott Crow from Osaka, hello Scotty, he coined this phrase called emotional positioning.
Okay.
And the a good teacher, what they'll do is they might give kids, a set of vocabulary, maybe a couple grammar patterns. So for example, like, look out, it's a blah or something, right? And then he has this picture of a bee, and then he leaves it on a chair, and then he's like, I need to sit down in this chair right now. And like he goes to sit down. And if the kids are losing it, they're like, look out, it's a bee, look out, it's a bee, look out, it's a bee, right? Like they're absolutely jumping out of their chairs, like screaming at this guy in English, and he intentionally set that situation up, right?
Wow.
So they wanted to communicate with him, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, that is such an interesting way of
Yeah.
of thinking about teaching. Yeah.
I wasn't that like how to say creative, but because most of my students are also like older.
Yes.
They're, like,
Oh,
in their
yeah, yeah.
Secondary school, high school.
Sure.
So I always ask, oh, how are your days in school like? Do you have any favorite people? Do you have any crushes? And they're very yeah.
Good question.
And
Wow,
they're
you
very willing to,
wow.
to show.
You're hired. No, it's like no, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because
they-
that's what they want to talk about.
Exactly, and they are very open to tell me more stories regarding that.
Sure.
So I do
the
agree.
gossip.
The gossip.
Right? Let's do girl gossip in
Yeah.
English, right?
Yeah,
No,
they love it.
that's great. No,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's you want to speak with them.
Yeah, I
Right?
want to
Yeah.
speak with them, want to know them instead of like teaching them English.
Sure.
Yeah, so
Sure.
Nothing
Right.
gets people talking more than complaining or gossip.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
that's a good. I'm gonna make that's a great idea. I'm gonna make like the complain gossip textbook, right? So yeah,
That'd be pretty fun if Japanese lesson we just learn how to gossip. Like
that would be
we
great.
never learn how to do like
That
gossip
would
in
be
Japanese, right?
great. Yeah,
brilliant
that'd be
idea.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Tokuro Sensei, if you're watching,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
sorry about
I'm
Japanese.
sorry.
About Japanese Sensei. Maybe we can pivot a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we've been talking about your schools and how
Yeah.
you start your business, right? But
Yeah.
I heard that you really like screenplays and writing as well. How about
Oh,
that?
okay. Yeah. So that what's the name of your podcast again?
Passion Project Japan.
Passion Project Japan. Okay, so this is great. So we're gonna do. We live in Japan, and yes, I do have my own personal passion project. When I managed to get some free time, I've spent about the past 5 years writing screenplays, feature length screenplays.
Feature length,
like
wow.
features, yeah. And I've completed 3, and all 3 of them have received awards and whatnot. My most recent screenplay. There's a screenplay competition done by the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. It's called the Nickel Fellowship, and it's basically like the World Cup of amateur screenplay writers. It's like it's the one, right? If you can win this one, it's pretty good. I managed to get into the semifinals this year,
Whoa.
so I was in the top 150. So I wasn't a finalist, so no. But,
Top 150.
So no, but yeah, no, it was funny, and they give you feedback along the way too. And as soon as I read my semifinalist feedback, I was like, I'm not going to be a finalist, because I was like everything they were finding wrong with my all the kind of weak parts of my story. I was reading it and said, yeah, that's a good point. It's like, oh man, I need to fix that, right? But no, so it was really great. It was a great experience. So yeah.
Will you ever bring these movies to life, you think?
I'm trying to. I have a meeting with a producer later on this week.
Ooh.
So we'll see what that it's like one of my first meetings with a producer. So having the Nickel award thing attached to it has attracted a little bit of attention. So I'm at least talking to somebody.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it's a 100-mile journey. That's like the first mile right there. But yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see. Maybe you'll be like in South by Southwest Film Festival or Cannes even. Wow. Yeah.
I'd love to. Yeah, and I know actually I'm interested in maybe even making a podcast based on some of the characters or something. It's one of the reasons I wanted to come meet you guys, because I'm very interested in some other I'm looking at maybe making one of the stories a graphic novel, or maybe making one of the stories into like some sort of podcast, like, fictional podcast.
Yeah.
To try and get some momentum. And because if you can go to a producer and like with a podcast with whatever 50,000 followers or something on it, like they'll look at it. They'll be like, oh, hey, this guy's got a built-in fan base or whatever. You've sold 30,000 comic books or something like that. So yeah,
There's some guaranteed ROI for them, basically.
yeah, it's a lot safer. I think not for the people who are going to put up the money, right? They're like, oh, okay, it's like it's kind of been tested in the market already. So
Safe
yeah,
bet. Do you know the back rooms?
I don't know what is that.
So back rooms. Do you know the back rooms? Yeah. So maybe there's this 16-year-old, I think 16-year-old filmmaker.
Okay.
Who created like a short film on YouTube.
Okay.
And then he basically turned it into a series. It attracted millions of views.
That's great.
And A24. They picked it up.
A24 picked it up.
A24 picked it up, yeah. And so now he is directing the film.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so
right.
it's an incredible story.
Yeah, it seems like nowadays there's definitely that. It used to be, I think it was very Hollywood based, and you had to get an agent or get lucky, and your uncle had
Baby
to work
Nepo,
at the place. Yeah, Nepo, right? It was like Nepo, or you just happen to get lucky or something, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many different avenues that you can take nowadays. Yeah, it's kind of exciting. So yeah, I just wish I could get a little more free time to work on it. But yeah,
Right.
Maybe I think this year it'll get better. But
Yeah, definitely. If we can do anything to like support you, or anything, we'd be happy
Great.
to help
let's
you.
be happy. Let's talk.
Yeah,
let's
definitely
talk.
set it up. So
Yes.
if they want to find you, maybe your website or your LinkedIn or any other social media you might have, where can they?
Okay, is this more for like business stuff or personal stuff, or
I guess if the guests, like any of our listeners, they want to follow up or like they want to ask you some questions.
I think anything like education related, I'm active in a couple of groups. There's one Facebook group called Central Japan Language Teachers, and
There's a Facebook group for everything.
Yeah, Central Japan Language Teachers. It's kind of a jobs board, and it's kind of like everybody. So you can find me on there. There's another. I'm just wondering, should I give them that? No, I have a YouTube channel with some teaching videos on it. That's EFL Teacher Talk with Sean G. And I am on LinkedIn. My full name is on LinkedIn. I have a kind of an abbreviated name on Facebook because I'm paranoid about. No, because like you see those things like, what kind of car did you drive when you were in high school, right? And it's like, dude, it's total identity theft thing, right? So no. So anyway, I am on mainly LinkedIn or maybe one of those Facebook groups. But yeah.
Nice.
We'll just link some of the stuff below in the description.
Great.
Yeah. And thank you so much for listening, guys. If you want more content, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok at Passion Project JP.
And if you want to follow us, purely just podcast, and I guess Passion Project Japan on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
And make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. Thank you so much, Sean, for having us. And for coming on. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And really happy to meet you guys. Really, interested in what you're doing, and it's a great project, and like happy to be a part of it, and happy to support you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.